the country's economy. Investec Chief Economist Annabel Bishop joins me now. Annabel, so, at an immediate glance, you see the markets losing, 2% on the day. The rand's hovering around 15 Rand 70. But then we've also heard a medic not so long ago talk about the exaggeration and the reality of this coronavirus. Do you think, even on the economic level, we're taking this thing too far?
Look, I think it's quite key, really to bear in mind what's been happening internationally in the markets, as you've rightly said, and obviously an extreme risk-off reaction. And, of course, we've actually seen a situation where we have seen some market concerns or fears that economic growth could even drop to around 1% this year, less than a third of the initially 3.3% forecast by the IMF. That's not the general economic consensus. It seems very extreme. The general economic consensus globally, looking at the impact of COVID-19 on world economic growth, has tended to perhaps say maybe 0.4% lower, 0.5% lower. Yeah. But nevertheless, there has been an impact on markets. There's been an impact on the rand. There's been an impact on equities, as you said. And, of course, the impact on the rand, not only, but also on the oil price. And all of these, tend to have effects on your economies in turn, on inflation rates, and then not to also forget the impact on the global supply chain.
You had some analysts say that, look, this could slow locally activity on factory floors, for example. How do you assess what happens with small businesses trying to make it in this very difficult climate and job seekers with the coronavirus hitting in? Is it something they should worry about?
Here in South Africa.
That's right.
Yes. Look, I think, only having one individual so far confirmed, I think we're a long way from worrying about that type of scenario. But nevertheless, I think you're speaking very correctly about the fact that we have very high unemployment, a great difficulty in terms of creating the jobs for those people who are unemployed formally, who want to be employed. And, of course, as well, the impact on small business in South Africa, not least from load shedding, which we hear could now start up again, and the difficulties the South African environment faces. And, of course, we feel great concern that economic growth was 0.3% last year, down from 3.3% in 2011, but down from 5%, that the Thabo Mbeki reign achieved. And, of course, these are the big worries that we have in South Africa. What happens if yet another problem is added to our economy, and how will that impact everyone?
Yeah. Reserve Bank looks at this scenario, and it looks at the possible, decrease of our overall growth performance this year. Do you think the coronavirus could be another added support for interest rate cuts?
Well, it's certainly been internationally. And, of course, with the Fed cutting interest rates by 50 basis points, it does allow us to seek an interest rate cut as well in South Africa. Sadly, a couple of days ago, very recently, the Reserve Bank governor said, yes, we understand the impact that lowering inflation has had and, of course, widening the space for interest rate cuts, but it's coming at a time where country risk is elevated. And to unpack what he means by that for the rest of us, he's really saying, we're just ahead of a Moody's credit rating downgrade, and that's on the 27th of March. And, of course, with the MPC now on the 19th of March, it may be too soon for their comfort at the Reserve Bank to consider interest rate cut. So we're expecting one in May. We're expecting there will definitely be a 25 basis point cut in May for all the reasons we mentioned. But interestingly, the self-same credit rating agency Moody's has actually said that our monetary policy is too tight. In other words, what they're saying is our interest rates are actually too high, given where our inflation rate is at the moment. And in fact, they actually feel we should actually potentially, look at interest rate cuts. So that's quite interesting. But, of course, again, this country risk really means the elevation we've seen in bond yields, the general risk-off towards South Africa that's happened in market. People disinvesting in South Africa, portfolio assets, because of this big fear we will receive a credit rating downgrade on the 27th of March from the last key agency that still has us on investment grade.
I've got a few seconds. I just want to ask you a very, very elementary thing. Should a small business this afternoon be afraid of really taking a hit from the coronavirus?
So I would say you can't be if there's only one case in South Africa. If we had 100,000 cases, look at the type of environment that China's in, and if we'd have particularly, this is the big issue, travel bans imposed, which really bring your economy to, a real slowdown, then you start to worry a lot. How does that small business operate if everyone's isolated in their homes? Absolutely. But, as we heard from medical professionals earlier, it's a very bad flu, and of course, they expect the majority of people to recover from it, which really means that, if it starts to run out of control in South Africa, of course we be worried. But our government has already put in a lot of measures in place to already surround this just one individual who's a confirmed case with so much support and infrastructure that it seems to be a very positive reaction that really, I think, would give us confidence in how they would react if more people became infected.
Indeed. Annabel Bishop, thanks very much indeed for those insights.